Continue our conversation with John Griffing, an investigative journalist who contributes for the National Review and the American Thinker. John, what do Admiral Kirby's words say to you about maybe a lack of confidence or a discordant message between the Pentagon and the White House?
Well, I think this goes back to what President Obama did early in his administration in Afghanistan and Iraq when he wanted to refuse to pronounce victory. This mentality runs throughout the administration like gangrene. It's this idea that we can't ever say we're going to win anything because when we lose, we want to have a valid excuse.
Sure.
Ben Franklin once said, he who is good for excuses is seldom good for anything else. I think that's what you're seeing with this administration. It's an effort to essentially lay the ground for defeat instead of prepare the way for victory.
$1 million question here, John. Did President Obama wait too long to act against ISIS?
President Obama appears to have been completely taken by surprise, and as it concerns ISIS, if you look back at what President George W. Bush had said about the instability of Iraq and the need for America to remain behind in some sense, President Obama did completely the opposite of everything that every major intel community advisor had said at the time, which is that we shouldn't announce our retreat, we shouldn't announce our data withdrawal, and that we should maintain some sort of presence capable of dealing with these types of uprisings. We didn't. Here's the result.
Well, John, the president, of course, and his administration is taking a lot of heat, too, for the response to Ebola as well. Is that comparison fair?
These viruses, these contagions are not non-existent throughout the last few decades. There have been comparable contagions that have required similar response. I just don't think the response is sufficient, and I think this president is somewhat ambivalent about his desire to even prevent these types of risks.
Let's talk about the issue of the travel ban, too, because the Speaker of the House, John Boehner, has called for these travel bans. The chorus is getting louder, more voices saying we should put these travel bans in place. But there are a couple issues here. One, the economics of this. We've already seen airline stocks plummet, but also political correctness is involved here. Do you think those two issues are trumping our own safety and security when it comes to Ebola?
Most definitely. What about the economic impact of mass death? What about the economic impact of millions of consumers dying from a contagion like Ebola? This is not a virus that we can simply, apply benign neglect to. We have to actually hit this head on early in the process, or a number of people will die. So, yes, I do think that those issues need to take a back seat to the more pressing and urgent issue of stopping the spread of the virus.
And we had an emergency healthcare expert on a program earlier today saying that, look, these travel bans don't really prove to be all that effective, at least according to his data. Even if that is the case, don't you think that would still send a message that they're taking this seriously?
Certainly. And one scientist, one of the foremost scientists actually on the study of Ebola recently on Fox, I believe, had said that Ebola was now airborne and that the CDC was not being completely honest about its interpretation of how Ebola spreads and is incubated. So we may have a much more contagious virus on our hands. Certainly travel bans are the first step. I think they're the first step in a number of actions that would need to take place.
John, how would you like to see then the president handling this situation, ideally?
Ideally, I would like to see a different president handle this. But since we're stuck with this one, I think he needs to take direct action to block any and all potential penetration of ISIS, who has said they will actually use Ebola as a suicide weapon. He needs to take immediate steps to block the spread of Ebola through travel. He needs to do far more than he's doing, and certainly sitting in conference rooms and then taking long trips to play golf is not sending the right message to the American people or our partners in the global community.
Well, John, I want to talk about Ebola with you a little bit because you are, in fact, in Texas here where these two cases originated here. What is the sense of the folks there in Texas? Do they feel like the government has a handle on this? Is there more concern than maybe we're hearing?
Well, Governor Perry has limited options available as a state governor. Texas certainly has more power as a state in terms of its police authority and its law enforcement capabilities than other states because of a complex legal history and development of Texas as a state. We're unique in terms of
well, that's fair, and we're running out of time, John. I'll have to leave it there, but that's something we can all agree on. Texas is certainly a unique place. Thanks for being with us, John Griffing. We'll be back with more here on America's Forum.